We are back on the record at 9:43 a.m.
I might have asked you this, but with regards to your position as a Director of National Accounts, would you also be participating in the SICP bonus program?
Yes, I recall. Being part of that program in that position.
And one of the factors to determine what your bonus would be is volume of sales, correct?
One of the factors, again, there were multiple factors that were that went into that program.
Again, one of the factors would be the volume of sales.
One of the factors would be volume of sales that went into the program, along with several others.
Okay. I can ask this question 500 times if you'd like, and I appreciate you providing additional information, but my question was, is it correct that one of the factors in determining your bonus as a Director of National Accounts is volume of sales? And I'm asking you for a yes or no, and then you can explain it any way you want.
Object to the form. Go ahead.
One of the factors included sales. Yes, that is correct.
It says you were nominated by management to participate in product pipeline team.
That is correct.
What is the product pipeline team?
It was from what I recall, it was a team of various roles looking into, R&D kind of led this team from my recollection, looking at items that we could potentially bring to our portfolio.
And when you say items, what is it that you mean when you refer to the term items as it related to your duties and responsibilities?
I'm sorry, items meaning the products?
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, products.
Okay.
So R&D team looked to grow our portfolio, and there was a team established with various roles to look at those products as potential items in our pipeline.
And would you be referring to then to generic medications that were not already in your pipeline?
I don't recall what products or anything, but there may have been some that were already in the pipeline that were being reevaluated potentially. New ones, I don't recall. Yeah.
It indicates that you won the 2016 Manufacturer of the Year Award from PBA. You see that?
I do.
What is the 2016 Manufacturer of the Year, and who is PBA?
PBA is a wholesaler located in Kansas City, and they were a customer of mine that year. I don't know the specific details as to how they determined the manufacturer of the year.
Okay. You get a plaque?
I believe there was a plaque that Mallinckrodt was provided.
Can you give me 0117? marking as exhibit number 4, a document that was date ranged 0117, I'm sorry, MNK T1 002 330117. Are you familiar, if you turn to the page before it, where it says Covidian Pharmaceuticals, Specialty Generics, Strategic Plan? Are you familiar with these type plans? Is something you've seen before?
Strategic plans, yes, I'm familiar. I'm familiar with.
And it says Covidian Pharmaceuticals. What's that?
Covidian Pharmaceuticals at this time was the parent company of Mallinckrodt.
Was Covidian Pharmaceuticals the parent of Mallinckrodt the entire time you were with Mallinckrodt?
No.
When did that change?
I don't remember the specific date.
If you turn the second page, there's a organizational chart. Are you familiar with that term?
Organizational chart, yes.
Yeah, okay. And it says Specialty Generics FY full year 13. I assume that's what that means?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year 13, okay. Specialty Generics, what does that refer to at Mallinckrodt, if you know?
Just the name of our group, Generics.
Okay. Was there also a group for branded drugs?
There was another group for branded, yes.
And do you know whether or not branded drugs that were sold by Mallinckrodt included scheduled drugs?
I am not familiar with the branded business.
Would that have been important for you to know as a salesperson at Mallinckrodt?
Object to the form. Go ahead.
I was responsible for generic pharmaceuticals. Did not have any responsibility for brands.
Okay. So looking at this organizational chart, and do you see where you're located on this chart?
I do.
I'm glad you do. Where are you?
At the very bottom on the left, under Jane Williams' column.
Okay. And so we talked about your position while you were working for Jane Williams, correct?
Yes.
Is that the position you would have been until the time that you departed from Mallinckrodt?
No, so this notes RAM, which would have been the regional account manager between October 2012 and July 2013.
Okay. And then when you moved to Director of National Accounts, would that be on this org chart?
It would have still been under Jane's team.
But you wouldn't have been a RAM, you would have been
A Director of National Accounts, so
Okay.
an NAD, if you will.
I see it, where Steve Becker is. Okay.
That's correct.
And again, in your role as a Director of National Accounts, did anyone directly report to you?
No.
Okay. And if you turn the page to the third page of the document, it lists folks' names at the top, Pete Romer, Bonnie New, Open Territory, I assume that's not a name of somebody, Steve Becker and Lisa Cardetti,
Yes.
right? And if you look at the names underneath, on the list underneath your name, Bartell Drugs, Bashas, Bimart, you see that?
I do.
What is that referring to, if you know?
Those are customers. Again, customers of Mallinckrodt would have been wholesaler, distributors, direct retail, for example.
And does this refresh your recollection as to when you were in the regional manager spot, that these would have been your accounts?
Not exactly. I mean, yes, it looks like this is what I was responsible for at that time, but it doesn't refresh any specific memories.
Are you familiar with the term diversion?
I am.
And what is your understanding of that term?
Well, diversion could take place at there could be several different types of diversion. Diversion could be in this business at the manufacturer, like a break-in of at the distribution plant or or at any facility for that matter. Diversion could be when we are shipping product and the carrier of that product is stolen from the transportation carrier. It could be diversion at our customers' facilities in terms of, burglary or break-ins, obtaining the product illegally that way. It could be at the pharmacy level. I mean, there's various different types of diversion.
Any others that you can think of?
Diversion in the sense that a patient acquires product that was not his or hers by whatever form.
Do you believe that diversion can result in abuse of opioids?
Sure, diversion could have an impact, yeah.
Are you familiar with the term suspicious order?
Yes, I'm very familiar with suspicious orders.
What is your understanding of a suspicious order?
So specifically at Mallinckrodt, there was a compliance team that, again, I know very high level as far as what they did on a day-to-day basis, but I do know that it was in my eyes, was a very robust program where they looked at detailed information, just specific to chargeback data, again, where the purpose of that was for true-up financials, but utilizing that data to ensure that we were doing the right thing in terms of shipping to customers of ours, that ensuring that we were being a responsible manufacturer and supplier of the product and working with customers that were responsible as well.
You say that there was a very robust program where they looked at detailed information just specific to chargeback data. What were they looking specifically at chargeback data for, if anything?
Yeah, so chargebacks would include, again, only internal Mallinckrodt information in terms of what, if we go back to my original kind of definition, if you will, of that wholesaler selling out to the pharmacy, the bottle quantity that the wholesaler sold to the pharmacy. That is the end of the information that we had as far as where our product was going. So the chargeback information would come from the wholesaler, again in an aggregated format, depending on how that customer provided that, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, and it was aggregated, and the team utilized that data.
Utilize that data to do what?
I was not in the suspicious order monitoring group. Karen Harper managed that group, so I would recommend contacting Karen in regards to the specific, what they did specifically with that data.
And so you can't tell me specifically, can you tell me generally?
Generally, from my perspective in my roles at Mallinckrodt, I was aware generally that they were looking at orders coming in, comparing it to historical demand, making sure that anything, if an order looked suspicious, you know, looking at that. But again, for the specifics, I would recommend contacting Karen.
While at Mallinckrodt, did you have any responsibility to approve a shipment to a customer?
That was not my responsibility. So suspicious order monitoring gave the approvals in terms of what orders should or should not ship.
And you did not, correct?
I did not give the approvals.
From the time that you started in January of 2006 to the time that you departed in October of 2017, are you aware of a single order that was determined to be suspicious at Mallinckrodt?
I don't remember specific orders. I do remember that that team looked at it on a regular basis and, you know, did the diligence to ensure that they felt comfortable. In my eyes, that team was very conservative and wanted to ensure that what we were shipping out was validated.
Do you know from the time that you started at Mallinckrodt to the time that you left Mallinckrodt whether or not there was a single order that was determined to be suspicious?
I would not have had that information in terms of what orders, I mean, again, the suspicious order monitoring team reviewed all of that. I don't know a specific order that was considered suspicious during that time.
So you are not aware of a single order that was determined to be suspicious while you were at Mallinckrodt, correct?
There were orders that were determined to be suspicious during that time. I don't know the specifics of those orders.
Okay. Was there less than 10?
I don't know I don't know the.
Was there more than 10?
I don't know the details around the number of orders that were considered suspicious or were not considered suspicious. Again, that was a suspicious order monitoring team that was responsible for all of that, and I would recommend contacting that group.
I appreciate your recommendation, and I'm not asking you how many weren't suspicious. I'm asking you if you know how many were suspicious. Actually, my question is, do you know whether any were deemed suspicious? Yes or no?
There were
Object to the form. Go ahead.
There were absolutely orders that were considered suspicious.
Okay. Do you know how many?
I do not know how many.
Okay. Do you know who Mr. Roush is?
I believe there were a few Roushes that worked at Mallinckrodt. A couple, I believe. A father and a son,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
Did either of them work in the SOM program?
I don't know.
In your roles at Mallinckrodt that we have previously discussed, did you understand that Mallinckrodt was legally required to provide effective controls and procedures to guard against theft and diversion of controlled substances?
We were trained that there were rules and regulations, again, knowing that this is a highly regulated market, in terms of what our legal responsibility was. You know, that was the suspicious order monitoring, legal, regulatory teams' responsibilities.
So did you have an understanding that Mallinckrodt was legally required to provide effective controls and procedures to guard against theft and diversion of controlled substances?
Yes, generally speaking. I knew that there were regulations and rules.
What was the source of that understanding?
Training that Mallinckrodt had provided.
Okay. Can you tell me about any training that you received as it relates to diversion or anti-diversion?
I don't remember the specifics around the training. Again, this was a long time ago, but I do know that from my recollection, every employee was required to do training, and again, I don't remember the specifics.
And did the training include anti-diversion training?
From my recollection, I believe so.
Okay. When did you leave Mallinckrodt?
In October 2017.
In October 2017, did you receive any training regarding anti-diversion efforts?
Object to the form. Go ahead.
In that specific month?
Yeah.
I don't recall.
How about the year 2017?
I do remember that it was regular training that we had. Mallinckrodt had several pieces of material that the employees were to be trained on a regular basis. I don't remember the cadence of any specific training though, and we had to complete the training within a certain amount of time.
So can you tell me in 2017 whether or not you received any such training?
Again, I don't remember the timing of.
The training, did it require some sort of either webinar or some other materials that would be utilized for purposes of training?
I do remember there were, yeah, like an online type of training.
Where you would log in and you would spend your time to receive whatever training you were required to receive?
That is correct. That was part of the training.
Were there policies and procedures that you were provided with that explained to you how often you had to train or when you had to train?
We would get notifications on log in. There's a new training out there that needs to be completed by X date, for example.
Who would provide you? Was that by email?
That was by email.
And who would provide those notifications to you? Was there a training group or somebody else?
I don't remember who sent those. From what I recall, it may have been a very general Mallinckrodt email communication. I don't know.
But you would log in and you would receive whatever the training was?
Yes.
And you believe that some of that training included discussion about diversion or anti-diversion?
Yeah, from what I recall, that would have been included in those trainings.
Did you have an understanding that Mallinckrodt had a duty to report suspicious orders?
Very general understanding, and pretty much that's the extent of it.
Did you ever report any suspicious orders?
Did I report it to who?
Anybody?
Not that I recall. Again, and depending on what, I mean, and if we're referring to July 2013 through 17, I wouldn't really have access to the orders coming in or anything like that.
I'm referring to any time you were with Mallinckrodt.
Yeah, no, I don't recall. I mean, again, specific orders, the only time that I would have seen specific orders from customers was at my customer service representative days, and again, that was not my responsibility. It was simply to enter the orders into the system.
Were you aware whether or not Mallinckrodt had a responsibility to avoid filling suspicious orders?
Sure. I knew that there were rules and regulations around suspicious orders, and I know that the suspicious order monitoring team was doing the diligence, looking at all of that, and I do know that orders were deemed to be suspicious.
When you use the term diligence that you just used, or due diligence, what is it you mean by that?
Kind of like what I referred to before, I guess. So looking at the orders coming in, looking at historical volume. Again, this is my layman's perspective of what that team was doing. I don't know the specifics as to what they were doing. I just know that there was a process that was followed by that team to look at orders.
And when you say that team, can you...
Sorry, suspicious order monitoring team.
And do you know who was part of that team? Can you name anyone?
Karen Harper, and at one point I believe, Jen Bust. Those are the two names that come to mind.
And I understand that was the responsibility of that team. And what I'm asking you now is, as a Director of National Accounts, what was your responsibility as it related to the suspicious order monitoring, if any?
I was not involved in the suspicious order monitoring process, from what I recall.
Okay. And that would be true of your entire time at Mallinckrodt?
Yeah, the suspicious order monitoring team, that was their responsibility in terms of reviewing and making those decisions. They were the decision makers.
Okay, so I want to make sure we're not splitting hairs here.
Sure.
When you say they were responsible, I'm wondering what your role, if any, in the department that you were in, did that intersect with the SOAM program or the SOAM team?
Again, kind of going back to my analyst days, I ran reports. There may have been, I don't remember specifically, but there may have been a time where I was asked to run a report for the suspicious order monitoring team,
Okay.
for example. Yeah.
Let me see if I can make it a little bit easier for you. From the time that you were a product manager in 2011 and forward till the time that you left, well, when was the first time that you got into the sales department? Let's start. Let me ask you that question.
Sales was regional account manager.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Okay.
So in your tenure in the sales department at Mallinckrodt, can you tell me what role, if any, you had in regards to the suspicious order monitoring process at Mallinckrodt?
Okay, thank you for specifying the time frame.
You're
so
welcome.
as sales, so if an order came in, was deemed suspicious by the suspicious order monitoring team, they didn't have any backup documentation of a new award or anything like that, they would reach out to the salesperson that was responsible for that customer, again, wholesaler, distributor, direct retail chain primarily, and ask for additional insight in terms of this order that looked suspicious. So we were kind of the middleman, if you will, between suspicious order monitoring and the customer, relaying information from the SOM team to the customer and back from the customer to the SOM team. And that was done over email.
And what training did you receive for that role or that responsibility?
I vaguely recall Karen, I don't remember specifics, but Karen giving us training regarding, that they needed this information in order to release orders or to potentially release orders.
Anything else?
Anything else in regards to the training that I remember?
That is correct.
I don't remember specifics around the training, no.
Anything else with regard to generalities?
Not that I can recall.
Did your, in sales, did your intended, who was your intended customer while you were in sales, and did that change while you were in sales?
The intended customer were the wholesaler, distributor, direct retail chains, like our direct relationships that we had with those wholesalers, distributors, direct retail chains.
What was your understanding, if any, as to whether or not, once the product was received by whoever the intended customer was, whether or not Mallinckrodt had any further responsibility as it related to anti-diversion?
So the responsibility was held in the suspicious order monitoring team, and that is exactly what, from my perspective, Mallinckrodt did. They looked at the data that was provided by those customers of ours, again, the wholesaler, distributors, direct retail chains, in terms of the pharmacies that they were selling to. That all of that information was aggregated into the chargeback data. The suspicious order monitoring team used that data to make decisions. From my understanding, and decisions were made based on having that. Again, that is just internal Mallinckrodt data. It doesn't give you the whole picture on those pharmacies or anything, but from my understanding, decisions were made based on that data, and I know that pharmacies were cut off. The suspicious order monitoring team cut off specific pharmacies, and notifications went out to the wholesalers and distributors that we will not accept chargebacks for these pharmacies. I mean, I feel like that was, the diligence was done with that team.
So you would agree that Mallinckrodt had some further responsibility once it delivered the product to its intended customer? And that was the suspicious order monitoring team's responsibility.
Suspicious order monitoring.
Judge to the form. Go ahead.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, once a product was received by whoever the intended customer was, whether it was a retail chain or it was a distributor, do you know or do you believe that Mallinckrodt had any further responsibility as it related to making sure that diversion did not occur?
Object to the form. Go ahead.
So again, diversion can happen in many forms, and
I'm referring to all of the forms.
right. So we can't affect, or we can't control all of the forms of diversion. We can control what we sold to the customer and the information we can use, and the data that was provided to us for Mallinckrodt specific products on who those wholesalers sold product to, utilize that information in a responsible manner to make decisions on how who received our product, who meaning the pharmacies. Again, that is the end of the chain as far as the information that we had.
Are you familiar with the saying, know your customer's customer?
I am familiar with that.
What does
saying.
that mean?
Just what I explained. Just the wholesaler is our customer. The pharmacy is the wholesaler's customer. So knowing your customer's customer is really that chargeback data that Mallinckrodt had and utilized.
Do you also believe that it included looking at IMS data?
To know your customer's customer?
Yes.
I don't see the correlation with that.
Are you familiar with the term peculiar order?
Yes.
What is a peculiar order?
It's an order that suspicious order monitoring team has deemed to be suspicious and needed additional information to make a decision. It's my interpretation of peculiar order.
Is there any difference to you then between a peculiar order and a suspicious order?
I don't know how they were used with that team, so not necessarily in my opinion, you know, from my perspective. I mean, it may have been that they needed more information. Again, I don't know. That would probably be best described by the SOM team.
Okay, so you don't know whether there's a difference or what the differences are between the peculiar order and a suspicious order?
Not necessarily, not that I recall.
Okay. Do you know whether or not, while you were at Mallinckrodt, whether or not any peculiar orders were ever shipped to a customer?
So again, my understanding of a peculiar order is one that the suspicious order monitoring team may have needed additional information. And for an example, if we recently won business with a specific customer, there was no history of that customer purchasing that product. So based on whatever the algorithm that team had determined, that team, meaning the suspicious order monitoring team, had determined it was considered a peculiar order, and then they reached out to the sales and marketing team, for example, to get additional information. We would have potentially provided, this is just a hypothetical example, that we would have provided that information on the new award and the expected volumes, and then that order could have potentially been released based on that additional information for the SOM team.
Are you aware of whether any peculiar orders were flagged to your attention and were subsequently shipped?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, there could have been orders that that were, again, from that exact same example, that may have been a new award, and that would have been okay to ship because of the new award.
Okay. Are you aware of any peculiar orders that were flagged to you that were not shipped?
Again, that there could have been situations, I don't remember specific orders or anything, but there could have been situations where, based on the information provided back to the SOM team, they felt that it wasn't appropriate to ship that order based on whatever details that they were provided. So,
do you recall any of those orders?
Do I recall any of those? I do not recall a specific order that was. I do know that there were, again, the process that took place, and there could have potentially been orders that shipped, and there could have potentially been orders that didn't ship, depending on the information that the SOM team received and whether they deemed it appropriate.
So there are a lot of things that could happen, and so I'm asking you what your knowledge is as to whether they happened. So I'm going to ask you again, with regard to a peculiar order, are you aware of a peculiar order that was brought to your attention? You did whatever diligence you were supposed to do in the sales group, and the order was not shipped.
I recall there were situations where orders were not shipped, and I mean, vaguely.
Okay. Do you know how many?
Absolutely not.
Is the same true for suspicious orders?
Yes. I mean, I kind of use that interchangeably from my perspective.
Do you agree with the following statement? During your tenure at Mallinckrodt, there was not a single order that was deemed peculiar that was not eventually shipped.
Say that again, please.
Sure. Do you agree with the following statement? During your tenure at Mallinckrodt, there was not a single order that was deemed peculiar that was not eventually shipped.
Can you rephrase it? There's kind of a double negative in there.
There is, that's correct. All right. Are you aware of any orders that were deemed peculiar, okay,
Okay.
which were not subsequently shipped to a customer?
Any orders that were
Deemed
peculiar that were not shipped?
That were not shipped.
Yes, there could have been orders that were deemed. I mean, I don't remember specifics around any orders or anything like that. Again, that was the suspicious order monitoring team. I do know that they reached out for additional information, and if an order was deemed not to ship, that would have been their decision.
Maybe I'll ask it to you this way as a true or false question. True or false? Every order that the SOM group deemed peculiar was eventually shipped.
Object to the form.
Is that false? Or is that true?
Object to the form.
Please repeat it.
Sure. True or false? Every order that the SOM group deemed peculiar was eventually shipped to the customer.
Object to the form.
It's true or false? You think it's true or do you think it's false?
I don't.
Object to the form. Go ahead.
I don't agree with that statement because, again, there were orders that were shipped and there were orders that were not shipped.
Okay. And would that be true also if I used suspicious orders instead of peculiar orders in the same statement?
I don't know how the suspicious order monitoring team defined the difference between peculiar and suspicious, so I can't answer that question.
All right, unfortunately, I have to ask the question again now.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask it to you instead of as it relates to a peculiar order, I'm going to ask it to you as it relates to a suspicious order. It's a true or false question. Every order that the SOM group deemed suspicious was eventually shipped to the customer.
Object
True or
to the
false?
form.
Again, I do not agree with that statement because there were situations in which the suspicious order monitoring team may have deemed an order to be approved to ship, and there may have been situations where the suspicious order monitoring team deemed it not appropriate to ship based on the information that they had, and that was, again, not my decision. The suspicious order monitoring team was responsible for that.
So you believe my statement was false?
Object to the form.
Can you repeat the question?
I can. We can do this as many times as you'd like. I'm going to ask now again about the suspicious order, and I'm going to ask you whether or not you agree that this is a true statement or a false statement.
Okay.
Any order that the Sohm group determined was suspicious, they deemed it to be suspicious, was eventually cleared to be sent or shipped to a customer.
I do not agree with that
Is that so? You think it's false?
because
Yeah, you think it's false. You told me the reason why. I'm just asking you. You think it's false?
Object to the form.
I don't agree with that statement.
Do you think it's false?
Personally.
Yeah, do you personally think it's false?
Object to the form.
I personally think that that is false, that the suspicious order monitoring team,
Can you show me 5043?
that the suspicious order monitoring team made the decision based on the information that they had to ship or not ship.
What exhibit are we on? I think 5.
Got a sticker, hopefully.
I do. I lose stickers though. I'm going to show you what is marked as Exhibit 5. Can I see one of those for a second? Damn it. Sorry about that. Thanks. Give me 4382. This is Bates range 5043 through, it's native, so that's the only Bates range, but it's a 2-page document attached to the native format slip sheet. Have you had a chance to look at these 2 pages?
I'm trying.
All right,
Little.
sorry.
Okay.
Are you familiar with these type of documents?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know who created this or when or what the purpose was, or there's no context around either of these documents, so.
Have you ever created a document for sales and rebates for any of your accounts?
Potentially. I mean, I
If you turn to the next page, in that chart, just at the top, I'm not asking you about the other ones, MI contract title, do you know what that is?
MI contract title. I don't recall what that would, MI.
All right,
would
do
stand for.
you know what rebate fee frequency, and again, I'm just in the top of that chart, do you know what that refers to?
Sure. So from my recollection, that would be based on how often those rebates would be paid.
And I don't think we've talked about rebates yet, so what is a rebate?
A rebate is it could be many different types of rebates negotiated with customers. Every account would be different from my recollection.
Were you ever involved while at Mallinckrodt in negotiating rebates with customers?
During my sales position, rebates were discussed. That is correct, yes.
And would rebates be part of a written contract with the customer?
They would, yes.
What is the purpose of a rebate? Does that benefit the customer? Does that benefit Mallinckrodt? Does it benefit both of you?
It's just how you come about the end price. Yeah.
What's the difference between a rebate and a chargeback?
So the chargeback is getting you back to a contract price. So if you remember, they purchase at a WAC price, get you down to the contract price. And a rebate would be going from contract to a net price, whatever was negotiated.
So before we used a WAC price of 10, I think, dollars, we used a contract price of $8.
Correct?
What is the net price? What does that mean?
It could have been different for every single customer. Contract could have met net with some customers. There could be 0 rebates. Again, it was dependent on the customer, and yeah.
What was the purpose of the rebate?
It was just a negotiated. I mean, to get the customer to a negotiated price.
Would the chargeback information be used to determine what the rebate was?
No, the chargeback no.
Did the rebate, was there actually a payment made to the customer for the rebate, or was it a credit that was put to a future, if you know?
Every customer could have been different on how that was paid. I don't know the specifics on any of that.
I'm going to show you a document which is marked Exhibit Number 6. It is bait ranged 4382 through 4404.
Thank you.
See the first page there is an email. Who is Lisa Lundergan?
That is me.
Okay. And was that your maiden name?
Yes.
Okay. You see that there's an email down at the bottom from Cindy Seneca, who I think was one of your supervisors that we talked about, to you on June 9, 2008.
Yes, I do see that.
Do you have any reason to believe that you did not receive this email in the ordinary course of your business at Mallinckrodt?
Do I have any reason to believe I
To
did
believe
not
that you
receive?
did not receive it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, based on what I'm looking at.
Okay. Please let me know when this has been updated. That was from you to Cindy. What was it that you were trying to figure out what was updated?
So from my recollection back in 2008, you know, as you can see here, this rebate metrics, it was just an internal report that was used as reference as needed based on.
What are you referring to when you say rebate metrics?
Sorry,
that's okay.
What you gave me.
Okay, is there you just refer to the number down at the bottom?
Oh, sorry.
So that's okay. Yeah.
MNK-T1
Yeah.
_ 000-643-4399.
All right, and if you just in the future, if you just refer to the last
Sure.
four, we'll find it.
Oh,
so 4399. Okay.
4399, correct. So this was a report that I recall was for reference only, based on what was based on our contractual agreements with our customers. And so it appears that Cindy was asking me to update it. Or no, wait, I was asking Cindy to update it.
Right. And why would you have been doing that? What were you going to use this matrix for, if you know?
So again, this is, from my recollection, just a report that was utilized to know what was contracted, like in our agreements with our customers.
So the first one is on that rebate matrix by contract, ABC Pro Generics Primary, and it says that they're an indirect customer, and it says the rebate is 13%. What, 13% of what?
I don't know the details of that contract at this time, so I can't answer that question. I don't have the contract of AmerisourceBergen back in 2008.
Okay. It says, it uses the numbers 13%. I'm not asking you what the contract says. I'm asking you what that 13% is supposed to represent.
That's what the contract would specify, how that 13% is paid.
Okay. And what were the options as to how that 13% could be paid?
Off of contract price would have been an option.
Okay. And the purpose of looking at this to know that ABC Pro Generics Primary had a rebate of 13%, how did that inform you as to what you did in sales at Mallinckrodt?
So at this point in time, I was a market analyst back in 2008. So this was really just a report that was provided to, again, know what was on contract, what was our contractual obligations that was negotiated with the customer, and the terms and conditions that was referenced as needed.
Okay. If you go back to the beginning of the email, back to the beginning of the document, you have the email page, and then the next document is 4384. Do you see that?
I do.
And we can start with any of these, it doesn't matter. Cardinal, Access, Acute, you see that?
I do.
And it says morphine sulfate ER, 15 milligram tabs, bottle of 100. What is that referring to?
So this is what it appears. Based on the contract with Cardinal at this time, these were the rebates and the item number, the NDC, with the specific product that was in the contract.
So the 18.5% rebate was in reference to that specific item.
That specific item on that specific contract.
Okay.
Correct. At that time.
Understood.
Yep.
Give me 4566. I'll show you Exhibit 7, which is bait range 4566 through 4567, and then there's a spreadsheet, a native spreadsheet attached. Thank you. The email is a one-page document, 4566. This was back in 2008, so you were in the marketing department at that point? Is that correct?
As an analyst,
Right.
correct?
You can see on the bottom of the email, it's an email from you to Bonnie New. Who's
Yes.
Bonnie New?
Bonnie New was in sales.
Okay. Do you have any reason to believe that you didn't send this email in the ordinary course of your business at Mallinckrodt?
No, I do not.
If you read the email to Bonnie, You read it to yourself. You say that you don't have projected usages for all of the awarded products to Costco. You see that?
I do.
And in order to make this report useful in tracking their compliance, can you provide the projected usages for the items that were awarded on the attached spreadsheet? When you say to make this report useful, what did you mean?
If to be able to do the calculations, if you don't have what their expected usages are, there's no data.
And if you take a look at the spreadsheet itself, is there you have the, I don't know what 035701 is at the top. Is that a SKU or an item number?
Yes.
Okay. You have an item description. You have an indirect price and a direct price. What's the distinction between those prices, if you know?
So for some customers that didn't warehouse product that needed to go through the wholesalers, they would be purchasing the product through the wholesaler, but would have a contract with Mallinckrodt. So the price that they purchased it, the indirect price, and then the direct price would have been the negotiated price, if you will. It looks like it's all the same in this, from what I'm looking here. So indirect is equal to direct, but it was really just a contract that was loaded at the wholesalers for indirect customers.
So back to the email, in order to make this report useful in tracking their compliance with what? Or for what?
So again, compliance tracking, kind of like what we were discussing earlier on my resume, was really, again, if it was a newly awarded item with the customer, they estimated the usage to be 100 bottles. For forecasting purposes, that 100 bottles would be put into our forecast. And then this was really to kind of track if we were getting that 100 bottles, that business, as you know, with that newly awarded contract.
That compliance had nothing to do with the SOAM program, or did it?
No, I mean it was more a sales and marketing tool for forecasting. Yeah. Okay.
And if you go back to the chart again, where we were talking about the item 035701, and we looked at the indirect price of $343, the direct price of $343. What's the effective date and the expiration date?
If we can go back to the previous question.
Sure.
So, I mean, again, suspicious order monitoring could have used that information as far as newly awarded volumes in making their decisions. So it could have, yeah.
Is that what you were referring to when you said compliance?
No, so compliance in terms of the volume that was provided to us, an estimate from the customer on the expected usage that would be on their contract, and then we would compare that. This would be kind of comparing that volume to what was purchased on contract for forecasting purposes. But if you remember our discussion earlier, I referenced kind of the same situation where if there was an order that came in from suspicious order monitoring and there was no history from of the customer purchasing that product, and that product, or excuse me, that order would have been named peculiar or suspicious, that then they could have, the suspicious order monitoring team at that point in time could have reached out to get more information to ensure that they felt comfortable with releasing that order.
Okay.
So
if we go to usage, because you indicated you need projected usages, correct?
Projected usages, again, what was contracted and estimated provided from the customer, yes.
So if we go back to the spreadsheet again and look at that first item, under usage there's nothing there. Is that the number? Is that some number or percentage you were looking for?
I don't recall. I mean, it looks like this, I don't recall this specific email.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out where would the projected usage show up on this document, if it would.
So I reference profit model here,
Yeah.
and so that was another tool utilized by sales, and the customer's estimated usages would be put into that Excel file. It was an Excel spreadsheet. So the usages would be put into there for any newly awarded item.
If we turn back to the report again, it says usage. Do you see that at the top?
I do.
Do you see there's nothing underneath usage, or is there and I'm missing it?
There are some items with usage.
Oh, okay, so I see. So it's to the side under the zeros. There's 3,000 down there and 12,000?
Yeah, there's.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I don't know what were the newly awarded products, other than this. I don't have any other additional context to know what the newly awarded products were, and in regards to what products I was looking for usage on.
Okay, that's fair. But if you drop down to that line under usage where there's a number 30,000, what is that referring to?
Again, that's the estimated usage provided by the customer on their demand, and the expected usage that was contracted.
Does that mean 30,000 of those specific tablets or pills? Is there by pill or by bottle, or what is it?
30,000 would have been by bottle.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't know if this is annual. I don't know any other context.
That's fine. I'm just trying to figure out what it is.
Sure.
You hand me 8664. Oh boy. Thanks.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 8, which is 86664. It's an email, and then attached to it is a spreadsheet that is produced in native format as well. See this email to you on August 6, 2009 from Kate Mullenkamp.
I do.
2009, you were in the sales, you were still an analyst, correct?
That is correct.
Who is Kate?
Kate was a product manager at that time.
Do you have any reason to believe that you didn't receive this email in your ordinary course of business at Mallinckrodt?
No, I do not.
Who is Victor Borelli?
Victor Borelli was a salesperson at that time.
Did you know who Victor Borelli was?
Yes.
Did you know him?
Yes, I worked with him.
Okay.
He was in sales and I was in marketing.
And when you got into sales, was he still in sales? If you know?
I don't remember when he left.
Okay. And then if you go up to the top, it's from you to back to Kate, and you CC'd Victor. You see that? And it says Subject Sunrise Reports.
I do.
And then under the attachments, it says some numbers: CY08, CY09, Q122. Do you know what any of those numbers refer to?
CY would have been calendar year
Okay.
2008.
Yep.
CY09, calendar year 2009, January through June. So it was 6 months of sales in 08 and 6 months of sales in 09. So Q1 and Q2, meaning January through March, and Q2 through June.
Do you know why Victor was asking for this information?
I do not.
Were you familiar with who Sunrise Wholesalers were before receiving this email?
I was aware of them as, I don't know if they were a customer of ours at this point in time, but from my understanding or recollection, I believe so, yes.
there anything else you know about Sunrise Wholesalers as you sit here today?
That they're a wholesaler that was eventually cut off, and that account was closed at Mallinckrodt due to, you know, throughout the SOM team and suspicious order monitoring. That's about it, yeah, that I recall.
Was Sunrise ever your customer?
No.
If we turn the page to the actual chargeback spreadsheet, I guess I'll
Sure.
refer to this. Are you familiar with this type of a report?
Yes, I remember
Okay.
these types of reports, sure.
The first thing is DEA number, and what does that refer to, if you know?
DEA number is the actual facility's DEA registration number with the DEA.
Okay.
Facility meaning the pharmacy.
It says ship to customer name Enrique Gonzalez Pujol, MD, under ship to customer name. Under pricing contract, it says Sunrise Wholesalers, and it gives their ID number, correct?
Correct?
It gives a SKU of 853001. It gives a product description of oxycodone with some of the other dosing information, correct?
That's not dosing information.
The
that's
milligrams.
The
I meant-
strength.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
The pricing quantity,
Quantity.
and the net sales. All right.
Correct.
So the DEA number is the number of, whose DEA number is that, if you know?
That's the pharmacy's DEA number.
Okay. Who is Enrique Gonzalez Pujol, MD, as the customer?
That is the customer that Sunrise Wholesaler shipped to.
Okay. The SKU would be the same SKU, would be Mallinckrodt SKU?
Yes, that's our SKU NDC number. SKU.
Okay.
Mhm.
And pricing, quantity, and net sales, what's the significance of that to Mallinckrodt as it relates to the chargeback?
So again, I don't know the purpose of this report, why Victor was requesting it. My role as an analyst was to run the data and provide the report. I don't know the purpose of the request, what they were looking for. All I know is what I looked at, you know, this is what I ran apparently according to this email. So I ran a report based on what was requested. Sunrise Wholesalers and who they shipped to and how much during this specific time frame.
Okay, when you say how much, if we look at that first DEA number and the Enrique Gonzalez, it says quantity 2,400. Does that mean 2,400 pills or bottles?
That's bottles.
And how many are in a bottle? How many pills?
On this specific one, so if you look at the SKU 853001, 01 at the end refers to 100 count at Mallinckrodt, so that would have been a 100 count oxycodone 30 milligram bottle.
So that was 2,400 bottles of 100 pills in each bottle.
That is correct.
And the net sale, what is that referring to?
That's referring to whatever the negotiated price was with Sunrise, like our pricing with Sunrise, like our contract with Sunrise.
Can you tell from this how much Sunrise charged Dr. Pujol?
No.
Okay.
This is all, again, the chargebacks was all internal Mallinckrodt data.
Would you then refer to that net sale number as a chargeback from Sunrise Wholesaler?
So not this specific number,
Okay.
because that wouldn't have been the price. This is a report based on a specific time frame for those quantities. So, so no, not that net sales price. I mean, that's a net sales. What am I looking for? Measure or whatever.
Could you have included additional information on this report as it related to the contract price and other things? I mean, was that available to do if it was asked for?
Not in Cognos that I recall. I mean, the pricing could have changed within within this time period. So it's not exactly, unless you knew the full context of that contract during these time periods. No, you couldn't you couldn't correlate directly net sales with pricing quantity unless you knew that there was no pricing change. I mean, again, I don't have any context as far as what the Sunrise wholesale contract was at that time.
And again, using this first Enrique Gonzalez Pujol and this pricing quantity of 2,400, that's 2,400 bottles of 100 pills over what period of time based on the email and the, can you tell me that?
Looks like attached are the chargeback reports for calendar year 08 and calendar year 09, January through June. According to the email, 8664 document.
And do you know why, is this in a specific order? Is it in order of, in any specific order?
It looks like what I did was I can't tell. It doesn't appear to be, excuse me.
How about pricing quantity? It looks to me like it might be in order of the most net sales to the least net sales. I could be making that up.
It doesn't appear to be descending based on pricing quantity.
It does or does not?
Does not. I mean, if you look at, it goes from a, no, it doesn't. I'm trying to see here. Okay, so it looks like there are there multiple tabs? What am I looking at?
Yeah, I'm not sure either. This is how it was produced to us, so I don't know.
Okay, so what it looks like is that this first section, I don't know if this is I don't recall this.
No,
specific
it doesn't. You're right. But it stops. Sunrise Wholesaler stops, and then it goes to another group of people like H.D. Smith, etc.
Right.
You see that?
I do. So yeah. So the first group for Sunrise, it appears that it's
going from
descending by net sales. Yeah.
Okay. And the other, which appears to be for different customers, but it's the same type of a spreadsheet. You need it's reflecting chargeback information.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Was this the one attachment that's referenced in this email?
I think it was just the Sunrise because that's all that was asked for. So I'm assuming that it was just the Sunrise chart.
Okay.
But the numbers aren't as important to me as just understanding what the...
Sure.
Can you give me 4431? I don't know how long we've been on or whether...
It's been about an
You don't
hour
know.
and 15 minutes.
You want to
Around
take
11.
you want to take a
Short
break for
Yeah.
a short
Yeah.
break? All right.
We are going off the record at 10.